Howdy everybody, and welcome back to what is going to be Introduction to Lightsworn Tier. The Lightsworn cards do add a lot to Tier, giving them some fairly linear combos that set up a lot of very good interruptions, as well as, getting your Tier engine rolling to begin with. Now, I've heard some people say that the Lightsworn cards just add a bunch of bricks to Tier, which I don't necessarily agree with. So I just wanted to talk about what the Lightsworn cards actually do in the deck. What do they add to your combos? What do they add to your inboard? And overall, it's just more fun because you get to mill tons and tons of more cards. So first, I want to, talk a little bit about what Lightsworn cards you actually want to play and what they do, and show you some of the lines that they can go through. Now, you can play a bigger package with like a bunch of names, or you can play what I think is the bare minimum required for the engine, but it's still pretty consistent even if you play, just a little bit. Right now I'm playing the bare minimum, which is going to be 3 Dragonling, 3 Weiss, 2 Wolf, 1 Felis, and then 3 Charge. Now this is I think the bare minimum you can go. There are builds out there where they play, more Wolves, more Felis. Also Solar Recharge is another option. Adding, charge, recharge, all of that stuff kind of makes your mills a lot worse because you have more dead mills in your deck. Also, the fact that drawing, more of these isn't necessarily a good thing, and drawing Solar Recharge without a Lightsworn in hand is also really bad. I think this is kind of a good starting point in terms of your engine, and with my playtesting, I haven't really felt like I needed more, because Charge does a lot on its own. Dragonling also can get you to your full engine on its own, as long as you have 1 Lightsworn monster in the graveyard. In terms of the extra deck monsters, there are a few options, but you're kind of going through a linear combo as long as you have Dragonling, or even like Weiss plus Wolf gets you to your fairly linear combo setup. So obviously there's Minerva. She's broken. She mills 2 Lightsworns with different types from your deck on summon based on how many you used. The plan is to always mill 2, because then if you mill 2, it gives you a setup into either a rank 4 or another level 8 synchro. Then you play the little Minerva, the Xyz. She can just mill 3, and if any of those mill 3s were Lightsworns, you can draw cards. So she's not bad to make as like a first option. If you use her effect while you still have a bunch of names in your deck, you're more likely to get some hits and get some free draws, which is very nice. Usually I don't really make her all that much when I'm going for like the linear line, because instead I make the Visas Synchro. And the Visas Synchro is kind of the replacement for Trivi Karma in this deck, because on summon it searches any spell trap that mentions Visas Starfrost, which is a lot, right? You have Planet, you have Scream, Sulliek, and Meta Noise, and then obviously Planet searches you any tier monster, right? So you just get to search any of these, right? So just by summoning the Visas Synchro, you get access to like all of these cards from your deck. And these cards obviously set up a bunch of mills on their own as well. Or even Rhinoheart, because the Lightsworn cards play very well without using your normal summon. So being able to search for the Rhino as your normal summon is really, really good, because it just searches any tier card. So if you open all Lightsworns, you can still get access to whatever tier engine pieces that you want, which is really, really good. And then as far as the Lightsworn engine goes, that's pretty much it. Now I will say, if you go for the Minerva plus Visas line, it does set up 2 level 8s on board, which can obviously go into Zombie Vampire. And Zombie Vampire, we all know, is a really busted card in this deck. You know, milling cards, being able to summon a body for free. It's just everything you want in a mill deck, pretty much. And really, that's pretty much all you need in terms of the Lightsworn engine. And I will say, this deck pumps out level 4s like crazy. So you can play any generic rank 4s that you want. I've actually been thinking about playing something like Daigusto Emerald, because you can shuffle back a bunch of monsters. Like, you can shuffle back a bunch of your Lightsworn names, right? And then draw some cards, and then, you know, mill them again, because, you know, these aren't once per turn. So if you shuffle back some Wolves and Felices, you can, you know, mill them again. But yeah, that's, as far as the Lightsworn engine goes, this is kind of the bare minimum you need. Let me move on to what the actual combos are. Now, as far as the combos go, you know, with Tearlament and Lightsworn, there is a tiny bit of luck element involved in it, especially if you're relying on charge to get access to your engine. So, for example, I'm just going to start with a charge here. So let's say we have charge, and then I'm just going to get, like, you know, four cards. And I'll kind of go over why I'm adding these cards to hand. So let's just say, you know, we activate charge. Now, charge mills for cost, so it doesn't actually trigger by being sent by card effect, right? So tier names don't trigger, spell traps don't trigger, but any Lightsworn cards do trigger. So let's just say, for the sake of example, you know, we hit one Lightsworn, right? We hit one Lightsworn, and then, you know, 2 other random cards, right? These 2 cards don't trigger, but depending on what you hit, they can actually be really useful. If you hit like a Destrudo, a Beast King of the Swamp, things like that, those are actually very useful in the graveyard. All right, so let's say we charge and we hit a Lightsworn name, which is ideal, right? We want to hit just any Lightsworn monster, so that we can go ahead and add the Dragonling. Now, Dragonling's effect is that if you have a Lightsworn monster in grave, you can special it out. So we're going to special it, and then on summon, it'll send a Lightsworn monster from deck to grave. So this is really good, because we can just go ahead and send our Felis. Now, Felis will summon out because it was sent by a monster effect. Keep in mind, Felis does have to be sent by a monster effect in order to special. So if you send it off of Scream or Charge, it does not trigger, which kind of sucks, honestly. I don't know why that restriction's on this card, but it is what it is. So we get to summon out our Felis here, and Felis, being a tuner, lets us make a synchro here. So we can go up into Minerva. Now, Minerva, since we use 2 Lightsworn names, we can send 2 Lightsworns with different types from deck to grave. And Dragonling would also trigger here as well if you play the Punishment Dragon or the Judgment Dragon. I don't think is really good. I mean, that card is like a hard brick. Punishment Dragon is like a hard brick. Especially if your Minerva gets impermed. Because now you really don't have a good, consistent way of, you know, banishing 4 Lightsworns. There is a way to get her back after being impermed, because you can link her off, and then you can, if you mill a Weiss can summon her back, and then you can use her effect to mill 4. But that's a lot of hoops you have to jump through just for a Punishment Dragon that, in my games, I feel like that would just be a hard brick most of the time. So we're going to use Minerva here. Just going to send 2 Lightsworns with different types. So we're going to send Weiss, which is a Fiend, and Wolf, which is a Beast Warrior. So Wolf will trigger here. It is mandatory, so it has to be Chainlink 1. and then Weiss will trigger here, targeting the Felis. Another thing to keep in mind is that these two are both Beast Warriors, so you can't actually send both of these off of Minerva, so remember that. Now from here, we have 2 level 4s, which are also a tuner and a non-tuner. So, depending on what you want, you can either go for the Visas Synchro or Minerva. Now, let's say the 4 cards in your hand are, Planet, maybe you already have like 2 Tearlament spell traps, so you don't really need any more. You kind of just want to mill cards. That's when you can go for the Minerva, because the Minerva can mill 3, and then if you hit any more Weisses or Dragonlings, then you can, draw some extra cards. But most of the time, I just go for the Visas here, because the Visas on summon will add us our, tier spell trap. So we get just for the sake of example, we can get the Planet here, and Planet can get us any tier name. So now we've already bridged the gap between our Lightsworn engine and our Tearlament engine. We can go Minerva effect. We can banish 4 from grave to mill an additional 4 cards. So let's just say we get 4 random mills. And I just smacked my cards everywhere. So we get 4 additional mills here. So we've already milled 6 random cards. And then we can overlay these 2 into the Zombie Vampire, and then Zombie Vampire effect, mill an additional 4 cards. So, just off of charge, hitting a Lightsworn name and adding the Dragonling, you can go all the way through 12 mills, plus adding the Planet. Based on whatever tier names you milled, the world is your oyster at this point, right? Maybe you want to get Rhino Heart out of your deck before you start milling. You can also do that. And what I think is a really undervalued part of the Lightsworns is that once you're at this point in the combo, right, so you have all these engrave, we are now 13 cards deep into our deck, which is really nice. So if you're playing a 40 card deck, it means you're now sitting at 27 cards. And milling 4 when you're at 27 cards is, you have a pretty high chance of hitting some really good stuff. Because now that, all of these are out of your deck, basically you only have your tier cards left, as well as your non-engine mill targets like Destrudo. You can hit some dangers to get some darks engrave for like Mud Dragon and Garura. So that is a very underappreciated part of the Lightsworn engine, is that it really thins your deck so that the rest of your mills are just going to be, super high value. And that's very, very strong. Now, it's also worth mentioning that, let's say you mill 4. Right, so you get the 4 mills here. And maybe by this point with these cards in hand and these engrave, you kind of have everything that you want already, which does happen sometimes. These 2 being rank 8s, you can also make a Photon Lord. Right? I mean, I don't have it on me right now, but let's just say this is a Photon Lord, right? So the Photon Lord gives you a monster negate before you've really committed much to the board, right? Like, we haven't even started using our tier cards yet, and we've already added Planet, milled a bunch of cards. So now we can go through our tier engine, completely protected from Nibiru, from Bestials, Ghost Bell, things like that. So that's another option. Otherwise, if you want to play around Nib, you can always set up the Rule Kalos or even the Grapha if you really want to, because I think you should be playing Beast King in this version of the deck. Now, there are tons of ways to actually get your Lightsworn engine rolling. Charge is a very good, pseudo 1 card combo starter, you know, if you hit a Lightsworn. But Weiss plus Wolf also does the same thing as well. So, you know, if you open Weiss plus Wolf, Weiss plus Charge, or Wolf plus Charge, right? Because you can go Weiss effect, you can stack the Wolf to special, and then mill the Wolf and then a random card. Wolf will trigger to special. And then from here you go into Minerva, and then Minerva will send Weiss and Felis. Now Felis will trigger to summon, and then Weiss will summon Wolf, and then now you're back in the same spot as the last combo, where you can go for the Minerva XCs, or you can go for the Visas Synchro. Just depends on what you need in your hand. And it's also worth keeping in mind that the Dragonling only triggers when it's special summoned. So, let's say you open a hand that's pretty much all tier cards, and you don't open any Lightsworns, but at some point in the combo you do hit a Dragonling. So let's say you can put up a Cross Sheep and, I don't know, just some random fusion, right? So you get a Cross Sheep and a fusion. You can go Cross Sheep to summon back the Dragonling, and then from here Dragonling just sends the Felis from deck to grave, summons out the Felis, and then from here again you're going through the same linear combo through your Lightsworns, right? Make the Minerva, dump 2, make Visas or Minerva XCs. You get the idea. Let's say you open no Lightsworns again. As long as you hit a Dragonling and a Weiss at some point, you can go Weiss, summon back the Dragonling. Dragonling, dump the Felis. Felis will summon. Make Minerva. And then Minerva, you have to be a bit more creative. Or you will need a bit more extension, right? Because even if you send something like Weiss and Wolf with the Minerva, you've already used Weiss, so you do get the Wolf. But from here, you can still set up a decent amount, right? Because you'll have your entire other hand to work with. So there's tons and tons of options to get to your Lightsworn engine. These are just a few examples. As far as the bricks are concerned, like these, I think the Wolves and the Felises are really the only bricks, right? Because Weiss isn't really terrible to draw. Dragonling also isn't terrible to draw. Or, I mean, obviously Dragonling is the card you want to draw. Dragonling and Charge are the two that you want to draw. So realistically, I think these are really the only bricks. And even then, they aren't the end of the world, right? Because as long as you can send one of these to the grave with like a Weiss or a Sheeran or anything like that, you know, it puts a Lightsworn name in your grave for Dragonling, but it also gives you options to summon these back with Cross Sheep based on whatever your other mills are. You know, maybe you hit a Felis along the way on your mills, and then you can just summon this back with like a Cross Sheep, and then this goes for, you know, your Lightsworn cards. So I think, you know, having 3 bricks is a lot better than having, you know, if you play more Wolves, more Felises, Punishment Dragon, I think those are a bit overkill. If you're trying to cut back on RNG, then playing the bare minimum Lightsworn package I think is fine, because basically you're just trying to go this into this, or this into this, and that's pretty much it, right? I'm not trying to do anything crazy here. And there's plenty of ways just to get these all out on the field, even playing a very small package. Now, one thing to keep in mind with Charge, so if you Charge does mill for cost. So let's say you hit like Wolf and then just 2 random cards, right? Wolf is mandatory, so Wolf will summon out once the card resolves, but this is where charge milling for cost actually comes in handy. Because if Wolf is your only Lightsworn monster that you mill, it will summon out, which means you won't be able to use Dragonling's effect as special, because you no longer have a Lightsworn in grave. But since you milled for cost, you get to check your mills before you add. So if you only hit a Wolf, and you don't have any other way to get Lightsworns in grave, instead of adding the Dragonling, you can just go ahead and add the Weiss, so that after the Wolf summons out, you can just normal this, and this will go through your entire Lightsworn combo with Minerva. So that is the one case where charge milling for cost does actually come in handy. As far as the Lightsworn engine is concerned, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover. Now, in terms of the rest of the deck that you want to play, you know, if you play a Lightsworn engine that looks like mine, you know, you do have a decent amount of space in your deck for, you know, the rest of your tier cards and whatever non-engine. The tiers are pretty standard, right? I mean, three of that, 3 of that, 2 of that. Sulliek. Meta Noise is optional. I've been trying it out just, you know, just for better mills. And since I play 3 tier cache, if I mill a tier cache, this is really good for being able to add it back and then summon it out for more mills. So the Lightsworns and the tiers are all pretty standard. I think these two as just one-ofs to draw is also pretty nice. Since none of your other engine is dark, I think playing a few dangers is really, really important, because you really need ways to get to your, you know, your Mud Dragons and your Garuras in order to make Stapelia. Because all of your Lightsworns are light. You know, you don't want to have to use 2 tier monsters to make Garura. You know, you don't want to have to play some dead cards, potentially dead cards like Punishment Dragon to make Mud Dragon. The dangers give you really easy ways to make these, while also not being dead in hand. Because they can also actually help you put some of your Lightsworns in grave. Like if you draw a Wolf, you can try to send them off of this, summon these out, draw a card, and then if you draw into Dragonling or Charge, then you're just off to the races from there. You can kind of do anything you want. So I do think having the multiple darks in the deck is super important, because otherwise, you know, the Mud Dragons and the Garuras are going to be dead a lot. So you really need a few darks. And thankfully the dangers have always been good in tier. So you always do have access to the darks. And then I think Beast King also super good. And I will actually throw the Night Sword in here as well. Now that Baron is gone, the deck really needs ways to put up spell trap negates. Because putting up an Appaloosa is easy. You know, getting a Sulliek is easy. Even like Stapelia is easy. Baron was pretty much the prime spell trap negate in the deck, so you don't just get evenly out of your mind. So I think the Beast King is like the perfect card, because for one thing, you know, it helps you put up Rukalos. It helps you tutor for Rhino Heart if you want to make Kaleido Heart. But most importantly is that it's a water level 4. So not only can you normal summon it out to make like a Minerva Xyz if you're really desperate, but, you know, Beast King combined with things like Mud Dragon and Rhino Heart, they help you make your Bahamut Toad, right? So you have all of these ways to get to your Bahamut Toad. Now that Baron is gone, I think Toad is kind of it's not a mandatory inclusion, but it's like a highly recommended inclusion. Because Baron, for all intents and purposes, was like a spell trap negate for the deck, because this deck puts up monster negates like crazy. So Baron basically, you know, functionally was a spell trap negate. And Toad kind of the same way, right? You put this up because you want the spell trap negate, so that you don't get even lead or lightning stormed or whatever. So those I think are great. Destrudo, again, I think this deck really wants spell trap negates. So I am playing the 1 Destrudo for the Dawn Dragster, because this deck puts up so many level 4s that any random level 4 that you have on field, like Night Sword, Beast King, Mothman, Choop, you know, any of your Lightsworns, any of those with a Destrudo makes your Dawn Dragster. So even if you can't make the Toad, it's still super easy to make a Dawn Dragster as your spell trap negate. So this is my current deck list here. It's 40 cards. I think it's one final card I want to mention is Aegis. There was a point where I was maining this, but I think it's probably just better in the side. It is super easy to mill this, and being able to negate any card like Dark Ruler, Droplet, because they have to, if they don't send a trap off of Droplet, you know, you can use this to negate Droplet, which is insane. And yeah, that pretty much wraps up the Lightsworn tier kind of introduction there. I think this deck's a lot of fun. The Lightsworn cards are super strong. They kind of give you everything you want in this deck. You know, they thin your deck out. They give you a ton of mills. They search for anything. And you don't have to play Trivi Karma because you have super easy access to the Visa Synchro. Because I don't know about you, but I always drew Trivi Karma whenever I played it, all the time. And I had no way to get it out of my hand. So, you know, fuck that card. Alright, so I think that about wraps up tier. I'm not going to go over the extra deck because, like, there's like 10 million different extra deck options you can play for this deck, and you know, I'm constantly changing up my extra deck. So, you know, you can make that decision yourself based on what you want to play.